All right, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian, and we are back with another Pokemon Unite video. This time we're going to be doing a kind of tier list video in terms of what are basically the best items in the game. We're going to be covering both battle items and held items. This should help give you guys, as well as explain most of their uses and what they're typically used for. That way it should give you guys a better idea and understanding of what type of builds you should be putting on your Pokemon. Okay. We have 4 categories, as you can see here. Staples. This should be self-explanatory. These are basically going to be common battle items that you're going to be using on most Pokemon. These will typically be the items that you might want to level up first, so that way they can give you the most benefit for most Pokemon that you play. You don't want to level up a niche item if you're almost never going to use it, right? So it just makes sense to level up the staples first. So that's kind of why I labeled it as staples and not like S tier or something like that, or have like, you know, those different tiers. Optional category is typically going to be for items, usually going to be like that third item that is like not always a staple, but is almost a staple, where sometimes you're like, I like these first two, but I kind of want to switch it up. Or in the case of special attackers, special attacker Pokemon don't have as many items that go for them, so they typically need that third item. So that's what the optional is. And suboptimal is basically the category where typically you're going to have an optional or a staple that easily replace most of the items in suboptimal. And then niche is usually for like very situational circumstances where maybe like you're trying out a specific type of strategy or Pokemon to go with it to see how well you can get it off. These will typically be items that are still really good, that in theory are very strong, but haven't seen the most success yet, if that makes sense. Typically, there's usually other items that are probably more consistent or applicable in terms of usage and utility compared to these niche items. So without further ado, we'll get started. We're going to start off with the held items first, just because there's more of those. Battle items are just easier to go through as a whole. So we'll go through the held items real quick. So in the staple category, I want to go ahead and just put, where is it? Let me put that there. We're going to go ahead and put Muscle Band and Floatstone. Floatstone, and we'll also do the Crick specs. I forgot what these are called. We're gonna put these 3 in the staples category, just because of the fact that out of all 4 roles in the game, it's a 4 or 5. Out of all 5 roles in the game, support, defender, which I call tanks, attacker, also known as DPS, depending on what games you play, all-rounders, and what am I missing? Is it only 4? I feel like I'm missing one. Okay. Well, out of all of those, all right, most commonly you will see these 3 items used on physical attackers, most notably physical damage attacker Pokemon. There we go. Right terminology. Muscle Band pretty much scales with your physical attack because it does, I think, up to like 3 or 5% of the enemy's max HP in terms of damage, but also buffs your physical attack stat as well as your basic attack speed as well. Floatstone increases your movement speed outside of combat, which is great for chasing down enemies or going in between lanes if you're jungling, or if maybe as a team you're switching lanes to go for a push. Sometimes if both you and your enemy's first goalposts have been knocked out, this can be a great tool, a great item to just kind of help get to the other side to try to score a goal a lot easier. But it also provides a attack bonus as well, a physical attack bonus. And then the critical hit item, this has been shown to be more effective on physical attackers for some reason over special attackers. So it's typically seen on most physical attackers. So these 3 items are very common. For Cinderace, for example, this is pretty much the entire build. for Cinderace, which is why he does such crazy amount of damage output. He has the bonus physical attack stats from Muscle Band and Float Stone, the extra basic attack speed from Muscle Band, the extra damage output, the little 3-5 extra % of max HP from the Muscle Band, and the critical hit damage and hit rate from the specs. So this is pretty much a staple build for a lot of physical attackers, especially for the attacker Pokemon role, I should specifically say. On that note, for the special attacker type Pokemon, okay, the most common staples are going to be the Wise Glasses and the Shell Bell. Okay, these are kind of in the same boat where the Wise Glasses are a huge amount of attack boost, kind of similar to what Muscle Band is. Wise Glasses is basically the Muscle Band for special attackers, and Shell Bell is basically the Float Stone for special attackers. The only difference being is that because of the fact that most special attackers are typically have a bit of range to them for the most part. Not always, but a good chunk of them do. That you don't really need to cover distance like Floatstone. And because of the fact that Shell Bell recovers your HP, you get healed based off your special attacks. And the higher your special attack, the more healing you get. This is just overall typically tends to be a better item. Most of the special attackers as of right now tend to be very ranged, so they'd like to be a little bit towards the back. They don't want to be on the front line of fights typically. So you can usually be pretty safe and get some healing when you do take a little bit of damage. In combination with the Wise Glasses, this already gives you like a massive boost in terms of your special attack stats. I think at max it buffs up to like 7% or something of your special attack, on top of providing I think up to 39 special attack. So that's already a massive special attack boost right there. So in conjunction with this, which is also giving you a special attack buff, I don't remember what the number is. I want to say it's like 7 or 14 or something. So in conjunction, it's a pretty big boost. So you're going to get a good amount of healing just from these two, and also get a good amount of damage. Now, unlike physical attackers, you don't have that third item like the physical attackers do with like the critical specs. So you're typically going to be using a good portion of the optional items with special attacker Pokemon. But these two are pretty much like just staple items you would use on a good chunk of special attackers. And this could be anywhere for like Gengar, for example. Gengar is a special attacker. Every single support Pokemon is a special attacker. Some of the, like about half of the attacker role Pokemon are special attackers. Slowbro is the only special attacker for the tanks. So for the most part, you're mostly going to be seeing this in about half of this on the attacker role Pokemon, and the entirety of the supporter role Pokemon for the most part. Okay, so next up, we'll go ahead and talk about the score items. Okay, so Aeos Cookie, and I forgot what the weights are called. I'm just going to call them weights. Aeos Cookie is going in suboptimal, and weights are going in suboptimal as well, just because of the fact that these two are typically their jobs are either already covered by items in the staple category or the optional category. Some of them we haven't really covered yet. So the Aeos Cookie, because of the fact it gives you, I think it's like 100 HP for every time you score. Typically, this is just not worth it, just because a lot of the passive abilities that some of the more defensive items already give you extra HP passively as a buff, okay? Just from having the item equipped. Just like a good example is Buddy Barrier. Buddy Barrier is also a pretty good staple for a good portion of Pokemon. Even physical attacker Pokemon sometimes will want Buddy Barrier, just because Buddy Barrier is that good. Not only does it give you if you fully max it out, it gives you, I think, up to 600 plus HP, which is absolutely insane. And that's not considering when you use your ultimate, your night move, you're giving yourself, I think, up to a 40% HP shield, and a teammate a 40% HP shield, whoever's the lowest HP near you for your team. So Buddy Berry is just really good just because of that. There's some people who even like take out one of these three just to have the Buddy Berry, because Buddy Berry is that good. And this is why Aeos Cookie is usually not that great, because there's a lot of the items like Buddy Barrier or Assault Vest, and I don't remember if Rocky Helmet gives you any, or if the Scoring Shield does. But there's just other items that typically already give you extra HP as a passive. So think about it like this: if Buddy Barrier maxed out, if you have both of these items fully maxed out at, like, let's say level 30, just for, you know, theoretically on paper, Buddy Bears can give you 600 HP passively just from having the item equipped. Aeos Cookie, you need to make at least like 6 goals just to get the same amount of HP as having Buddy Barrier equipped at the start of the game. Aeos Cookie is a lot more harder to pull off. It's not as consistent to pull off compared to just having an item equipped like Buddy Barrier or Assault Vest, which is why Aeos Cookie is in suboptimal. And the weights are kind of in the same category, where because these three items pretty much serve all you really need for the physical attacker Pokemon in the game. This is already all the damage you really need. This is kind of irrelevant. It's kind of the same concept where you kind of need to make multiple goals just to kind of get the same value that you would just from having these equipped in the first place. So these two are in the suboptimal. Now, on that note, the special attack lens, I'm putting in the optional just specifically because of the fact that we only have 2 consistent special attacker items compared to physical attackers who have 3. You can literally, on a lot of physical attackers, just run all 3 of these. But because we only have 2 for special attackers, you're going to need that 3rd item most of the time, which is where the special attack lens come in, which is why it's an optional. Sometimes you can put it in there just to kind of help you get that extra damage in. You'll probably more commonly see this on Gengar, where you have like the Y-Specs, the Shell Bell, and special attack lens on Gengar, just because he wants to go in and get damage done. And he's also a speedster, so he's also typically a good candidate for scoring goals a lot of time, either while the enemy's distracted, just kind of sneaking in a few points of goals, or helping out with a team fight, so that way you guys can go rush the goalpost at the same time. So this is also a good optional item for special attackers. Now, on that note, okay, we're going to cover some more of the, I guess you could say, less known items. These are basically the non-stable. We've pretty much gone through we've gone through all the staples at this point in terms of held items. So we can explore more of the other items at this point. So in terms of the optional ones, we got the Focus Band, and the Assault Vest. I'm going to put this here just because they kind of both serve the same purpose, which is just trying to stay alive. Focus Band gives you both physical defense and special defense buffs. And I think if you fully max it out, it gives you plus 30 stats of both, which is pretty big. And if you have it fully maxed out, or not even fully maxed out, if you have it up to level 20, I believe once you reach about 1/3 of your health or so, this will start healing you up to 14% of your max HP every second for up to 3 seconds, which is massive. So I think if my math is correct, you're restoring up to, what is it, like 42% of your HP within 3 seconds. Of your max HP within 3 seconds once you start hitting near critical levels with the level 20 Focus Band. That's insane. On top of having defensive buffs too, this is a great item. This is a great like standard like 3rd item that you can have, especially for like special attackers. It's not uncommon too that you might even see some like physical attackers just take out the special attack or the special attack lens, or even the float stone, and just go with a Focus Band as well, just because it helps you stay alive during critical situations. So if you're playing a Pokemon that's using Eject Button, for example, the Focus Band can be really useful to go along with that, to just kind of help during situations where you're going, oh shit, where you like a more risky playstyle, the focus band is absolutely fantastic for just helping you stay alive during those moments. So focus band's a great item for those situations. Assault vest is kind of in the same boat, but more commonly seen with special attacker Pokemon, just because of the fact that the like I said before, most special attackers in the game, outside of the support Pokemon, most special attackers in the game tend to be ranged Pokemon. So Ninetales, Cramorant, Pikachu, Venusaur, even Gengar. These are pretty much like Pokemon that have a bit of range to them. So Assault Vest, at the same time, especially on support Pokemon, will, because it can be harder to reach those Pokemon, having Assault Vest on can just keep you alive a lot easier. You can kind of confront the front line a little bit easier without worrying about getting just bursted down really quickly. The fact that it gives you a shield outside of battle, or like the shield regenerates, I should say, outside of battle. I forget how much it is, but it's a pretty big amount. I think it's like up to 14% at level 20 or something like that of your max HP. That can be massive. So it's not uncommon for like a lot of defenders, for example, to run both an Assault Vest and Focus Band and like Buddy Barrier, where you get the huge HP buff from just the Buddy Barrier's passive, and you get Assault Vest Barrier, which scales with the Buddy Barrier's extra HP too. So you end up just getting a really chunky Assault Vest Barrier against special attacks that regenerates outside of battle every time. So really good defensive item. It also gives you extra HP buff as well, so it scales with itself too. So really solid third item as well. Okay, so next up, we're gonna go into what's the next one I should talk about? Let's go ahead and talk about experience share. Now, I think most people kind of underestimate how good experience share is. Experience share is probably one of those items not right now that's being used by a lot of high tier Pokemon Unite players. Mostly because of the fact that the whole point of experience share as of right now is if you're playing a Pokemon, it's typically going to be defenders and support Pokemon that want to use experience share, with the main strategy being that because of the fact that most support Pokemon and defending Pokemon get most of their value from CC and their abilities, they're not really there. Their job isn't really to get damage done, okay? Their job is to help out their teammates and let their teammates do the carrying, if that makes sense. So the idea with experience share is that in whatever lane that you're going in with your teammate, you want to let your teammate get all the final hits in on the wild Pokemon. You can help whittle down the wild Pokemon with them to make it easier for them to level up faster and knock out the wild Pokemon so they get that extra experience from knocking out the wild Pokemon faster. So let's say you're like a Snorlax or a Mr. Mime, Wigglytuff, Eldegoss, Slowbro, even Crustle. Having experience on can help maybe like your Cinderace or your Charizard, just any of the all-rounders or attacker role Pokemon essentially. Level up faster so they can do more damage faster. You're essentially letting them carry. Like I said, most of your value from the defenders and support Pokemon come from your abilities, most notably the knockback, a slow effect, or CC that they provide. So like this would be, for example, Snorlax with his heavy slam, getting the knockup to stun them, for example, and then using barrier to either push them back to where you want them, essentially. Or Mr. Mime, in terms of walling them off, okay, to go for the Wombo combo Confusion Wall combo. Wigglytuff using Double Slap to slow them and Sing to slow them even further and even put them to sleep. Their defender and support Pokemon are there for their abilities to help their teammate get the knockout. It's great if you can get the knockout yourself too, but you're typically wanting your teammate to do most of the work for you, essentially. So that's where experience share really comes in and starts to shine, is on those two rules specifically. You don't really want to see this on an attacker or all-rounder Pokemon, because then if you see that, you're starting to wonder what's wrong. Unless they're trying to experiment, maybe they're new to the game and they're just trying out the item. This is mostly for defender and support Pokemon. So other than that, we have I forgot what this item's called. I remember what it does, but I forgot what it's called. But essentially, whenever you use your Night move, it boosts your damage output for a short duration shortly after using your Night move. And I think when it's at level 20, it buffs all your damage by 21%, if I remember correctly. And it also provides passives when held that let you recharge your Night move faster, as well as all of your ability cooldowns recharge faster too off their cooldown. Oh, excuse me. Got hiccups. All right. This is a very nice optional item as well. You might typically, in my opinion, see this mostly on attacker or all-rounder Pokemon, just because they're the ones who really want to get the damage in. So it's kind of like in the same boat as EXP share, where you really only typically see this on defender and support Pokemon, and you typically only really want to see this on attacker and all-rounder Pokemon for that extra damage. This is supposed to help your attacker and defender Pokemon do the carrying, and this is supposed to help your attacker defender Pokemon do the carrying. Oh, excuse me. So that's kind of the idea behind these two. Last but not least, we only have 3 held items left. All 3 of these items, in my opinion, go in the suboptimal. Leftovers, in my opinion, just does not do enough. It's just way too slow. Usually you need... Let's put things into perspective, for example. Sitting at the goalpost, any goalpost, will heal you about 200 HP per second. Okay, like every second you'll get healed like 200 HP. To get the same amount of healing from, I think like I maxed out, I don't remember if it's level 20 or 30. I'm pretty sure it's a level 20 leftovers. To get the same amount of HP from a leftovers, you have to be sitting, not sitting, you need to have a boatload of extra HP in order to make use of this. So like, for example, on a Snorlax that has like a maxed out Assault Vest and Buddy Berry equipped might barely be able to get just a little around the 200 HP or a little bit more than 200 HP just from leftovers passive alone. In that case, it's not really that useful. You're better off just going to a goalpost and get healing and equipping a 3rd defensive item like Focus Band to keep you alive instead, because like Focus Band alone is already going to like heal you up to like at least half your health just from having it equipped if you get critical low, on top of having defensive buffs too. So not only does this actually heal you during a fight, whereas leftovers does not, it heals you faster. So leftovers, it's just too slow and it requires way too much work to put in. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if they buffed the leftovers, the healing amount for leftovers, to make it more viable. If it was like at least double the amount, then I think people might consider using leftovers at this point. But at least as of right now, leftovers is just, there's just no point having leftovers if you have Focus Band and Shell Bell for healing, on top of Buddy Bear for that extra HP anyways. To stay alive, and the shield too when you use your ultimate to stay alive even more so. So yeah, leftovers is just not, it's just not good enough. Rocky Helmet is kind of in the same boat essentially, where it kind of sucks. You will only ever see Rocky Helmet on potentially tank Pokemon who are going with a full defense build. So let's say, like, for example, Buddy Barrier, either a combination of Buddy Barrier, Assault Vest, Focus Band, and Rocky Helmet. Just because of the fact that Rocky Helmet will reflect, I think it's like at level 20, up to 5% of damage based on the enemy's max HP back to them. And in a game where you have like thousands of HP, 5% isn't much. It's about the equivalent of like a basic attack. Essentially, it'll do like around 200 250 damage typically. And I think it goes on cooldown for a short duration too, every time it triggers. It does provide a physical defense buff, but realistically, in my opinion, Focus Band just completely outshines Rocky Helmet. I would rather have Buddy Bear, Assault Vest, and Focus Band as my defensive items if I wanted a pure defense build instead of having a Rocky Helmet. Just because Focus Band already provides more, I think provides a greater or equal to physical defense buff that Rocky Helmet does, but also provides that special defense buff and that healing during combat. Essentially, so Focus Band just completely outshines Rocky Helmet, as well as Buddy Berry, because it gives you such a massive HP buff and that shield, extra 40% shield when using your ult. So as much as I would like Rocky Helmet to be good, especially on Pokemon like Garchomp, for example, who have essentially the same type of passive ability, yeah, especially for the same type of passive ability, I think Focus Band and Buddy Bear are just straight up better. So sorry, Rocky Helmet, but they need to give you a buff. They really do. I feel like they need to buff the passive a little bit. If they buffed it maybe to 10%, it might be, or even like 15, it might be a little bit better. But next up, last but not least, we have the scoring shield. We're also going to be putting the scoring shield in suboptimal, just because of the fact that you only have the shield when you're trying to score, which again is kind of in the same boat as the scoring items right here. We'll put it over here. It's kind of the same boat as this. They're too inconsistent. The fact that you don't keep the shield too after you score, I think kind of sucks. If you kept the shield after you scored, then I think score shield would be a lot better and more viable to use, especially for speedster Pokemon, because speedsters have an easier time sneaking in scores and goals and stuff compared to like other roles. But because of the fact you only, and I think it's only up to 10% of your max HP too, when you're trying to score at level 20 for this item, off the top of my head. So it's just too inconsistent like the rest of the score items, and it doesn't stick around after you try to score either. So for that reason, it's in the suboptimal category. You're better off just having other defensive items, again, like Assault Vest, Focus Band, and Buddy Barrier, to stay alive if you're just trying to focus on staying alive. So yeah. Okay. Last but not least, we have all of the battle items. Now, you'd probably notice that I haven't put any of the held items in niche, just because you typically can have some purpose for all of these items. Even the suboptimal items can sometimes, you'll typically see a lot of these used in very specific type of builds. So the scoring items you'll typically see sometimes on speedster Pokemon builds, just because they're the ones more likely to try and be scoring, in theory anyways. Garchomp for specific type of defensive builds, like on tanks or maybe on Garchomp itself, and same thing with leftovers, maybe on defensive builds as well. So these things still see use. They're just not as common. They're very uncommon to actually use, essentially. You're not as likely to use them compared to these staple items or even the optional items, essentially. Anyways, the battle items, okay. In terms of the battle items, I'm going to put the Gold Getter in the niche category, and the full heal in the niche category as well. These two items are very strong items. The only problem with them is that they're very inconsistent and situational, and they're purely dependent on how the enemy is playing and what Pokemon they're playing. And that's kind of the biggest problem with them right now. Where Gold Getter is only really super useful if you have a large amount of points like just stacked on you. Like maybe even holding 40 or 50 points for a while now, and you just need to get a quick goal. From my experience, Gold Getter will reduce the time to score by about half, roughly. So if you have 50 points, you can pop Goal Getter, and then the time it would take you to score 50 points will be about the same amount of time as it would to score 20 or 25 points. It can be really fast. So it's really strong in those aspects, but that's not until like mid to late game that starts to happen. And mid to late game, when usually it's not uncommon for like both teams' first goal points to be taken out, getting to that second goal post towards the enemy spawn essentially can be really difficult, especially when they can use the little jump pad from spawn to just jump to that second goal post immediately. This scoring can be hard to pull off in those situations. So very strong item, but very situational. I would probably only really use this on a speedster Pokemon for the most part, because otherwise you can just utilize teamwork to kind of win team fights or just go for a push on a goalpost essentially to try and get that goalpost. So very good item, it's just hard to pull off. And Full Heal is kind of in the same boat where it's a very strong item, especially in this game. This game has a lot of Pokemon that inflict CC. If you don't know what CC is, it's an abbreviation for crowd control. So anything that inflicts stuns or reduces movement speed, essentially, in this game. All right, Full Heal is amazing to counter a lot of these Pokemon. The only problem with it is that it doesn't always guarantee you to help out, because what if the enemy team is not running too many CC Pokemon? What if they're running like almost pure damage Pokemon? Well, now your battle item's kind of useless. The fact that you have to choose your battle item before knowing what the enemy is playing, I think is probably one of the main cons that I really dislike about this game, because it makes Full Heal a lot harder to actually utilize. I feel like Full Heal is one of those items that you would preferably want to have after knowing what the enemy's playing. So like if you see them running a team that's like has tons of CC Pokemon, like what if they're running Ninetales who can freeze you and so slow you down and freeze you, Pikachu who can paralyze you in place, stun you, Snorlax who can body slam you stun you essentially, and Full Heal lets you actually phase through their block too, I believe, as well, if I remember that correctly. You can just walk through a Snorlax's block ability, I think, if I remember correctly. So if they're running a lot of CC characters, Full Heal is amazing, but it's too hit or miss, and that's the problem with it. And it doesn't let you always essentially get out of a situation. So because of that, it's a very niche. Personally, I feel like Full Heal has potential on Machamp specifically, just because a lot of Machamp's moves, especially his submission move, already help him ignore hindrances, whereas Full Heal helps him fully get out of stuns. Machamp, it's worth noting that Machamp's like abilities don't let him avoid stuns, specifically like hard stuns. So a hard stun is anything that literally holds you in place, not slow you down. A slow effect are considered hindrances, whereas actual stuns are considered hard stuns. Okay, so Full Heal will actually get you out of hard stuns. Think of like Slowbro's telekinesis, for example, or getting paralyzed from Pikachu. These are hard stuns. Whereas, I don't know, Ninetales just slowing you down with her basic attacks, that's just considered a hindrance. In which case, Machamp can get out of those just from that. So I think Full Heal has potential on Machamp specifically. I don't know about anybody else though. Next up, we have the attack and speed battle items. I'm putting the attacker one in. Actually, you know, let's do some more of the staples. Eject Button's pretty much a staple. You can't go wrong with Eject Button. If you don't know what battle item to use in a game, Eject Button's a pretty nice standard battle item that you can just use. It's always guaranteed to give value, and it's pretty consistent. Okay, in a lot of situations, you can actually use it to pop past walls as well. You can use it to kind of get through the playing field. You can use it as an initiation tool to help secure that knockout if they're trying to run away, or maybe you're trying to jump somebody without them being aware. You can use it as an initiation tool. You can use it as an escape tool if you're in a sticky situation. You can pop it to get away really quickly. It's just a really nice all-round useful battle item. Another staple that I think the community hasn't completely picked up on just yet, but I think should become a staple for more people and more Pokemon is Slow Smoke. I think Slow Smoke is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of Pokemon in the game that want to get close and personal in order to get value, and especially for Pokemon that have CC in their kit, Slow Smoke essentially does the same job as Eject Button, but a little bit better because you can actually use Slow Smoke for battles. You can actually use it to get value during battles. And I actually made a gameplay video, which I could leave a card up above on the top right of this video, which should pop up in case you want to like see it in action, essentially. It can kind of do the same purpose where you can kind of use it as an initiation tool or a disengagement tool like Eject Button, but it almost acts like a third ability on cooldown because it slows down the opponent in a pretty decently sized AoE radius. So if you just want to hold the enemy in place just for a little bit longer, whether you're trying to run away, prevent them from running away, or you're just trying to secure the kill long enough to get that extra damage in, Slow Smoke is absolutely amazing. It doesn't work on every Pokemon, but it works on a good chunk of Pokemon, in my opinion. So these are the two items that I think like where you can't really, where Slow Smoke is not that very effective on your Pokemon, you would have Eject Button, and then likewise on certain Pokemon, you could have Slow Smoke is a little bit better compared to Eject Button. So it's like you can use one or the other depending on which Pokemon you're using. Eject Button is more of the safe bet all around, but on like a good chunk of Pokemon, I say about at least third of the roster, you could run about half to third of the roster. Slow Smoke is also really good too. Now, with that in mind, we have the attack. I forgot what this is called. The attack buff battle item. I'm putting this in the optional just because the fact that a lot of Pokemon want to deal damage fast, so you can use it in a lot of situations. I guess since we're talking about this one too, we should also put the Fluffy Tail in the suboptimal too. This is just my personal opinion, but because of the fact that you can use this to deal, it gives you an attack buff in general. Your special attack and physical attack damage stat gets buffed for a short duration, and this can be used against wild Pokemon and enemy team Pokemon at the same time, and I think that's just more valuable. It has a slightly longer cooldown than Fluffy Tail. The trade-off though is that Fluffy Tail only really works against wild Pokemon and only wild Pokemon that are like near you for a very short duration, whereas attack speed lasts for a little bit longer than Fluffy Tail, but can be used against enemy Pokemon too. So this helps in actual fights against the enemy, but can also help you farm wild Pokemon if you're just trying to level up for wild too. So this just has more utility and usage applications compared to Fluffy Tail, in my opinion. So in that case, I think this is just better, especially even for speedsters. Even if you're trying to jungle a lot, this is just better for those specific reasons. You can pop this to try and help farm the wild Pokemon a little bit faster, but you can also pop this if you're trying to help out teammates in a lane and jump somebody on the enemy team to catch them off guard. You can do it to get that extra bit of damage in to help secure that knockout. So yeah, just better usage opportunities in general. Last but not least, we have these two items. So I'm going to put the speed item in suboptimal. The only thing about speed is that it increases your movement speed and ignores hindrances for a short duration. Okay, remember, as of right now, hindrances are mainly like slow effects, anything that slows down your movement speed. In which case, I think that Eject Button is usually just kind of better. And a good portion of the speedster Pokemon, and even attacker Pokemon and some of the defenders, like a good portion of the roster in general already have abilities like moves that can let them travel a bit of distance on their own, on top of Eject Button, if you have Eject Button equipped, that you don't really need this item to get out of a situation. So it's kind of redundant from a good portion of Pokemon, if that makes sense. So because of that, it's suboptimal. You're better off having that extra utility from having like the X Attacker, the Eject Button, or the Slow Smoke to actually help for battles, during battles, if that makes sense. And last but not least, we have the Potion battle item. I'm putting this in a suboptimal just because of the fact that, in my personal opinion, it does not heal anywhere near enough HP to be viable. If I'm going to have Potion, it's only really going to be on like Defender Pokemon to keep me alive just a little bit longer. But even then, in that case, I would rather have Eject Button or Slow Smoke to keep me alive anyways, because I can use Eject Button to get out of that sticky situation. Same thing with Slow Smoke, a lot more reliably. These effectively act as like a third move to get out of a situation. On top of the fact that you can use Slow Smoke and Eject Button to actually help initiate a fight or win a fight, essentially. Whereas Potion cannot. It's purely there for healing. In which case you're better off using like a Focus Band or a Shell Bell for the healing instead. So yeah. So other than that, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. Go ahead and let me know what your thoughts and comments are in the comment section down below about my scoring here for all the items. Do you agree with my essentially tier list? Are there items that you think should probably see more use compared to others? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. But other than that, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. It's the best way to know when I upload more videos such as this one. My name is Brian, and I'll be trying to post a Pokemon Unite video almost every day if possible. So other than that, I will see you guys in the next video, and you guys have a great day. Peace.